So I thought it was 20 minutes presentation, so I will rush a bit and skip some slides. So thanks for having me here today. So I will skip the first one. So you probably all heard about, oh, we don't see, but okay. About autism in your daily life. So when I was in the plane from France to Sweden, I saw someone reading a book about autism. When I was in the LCA or CA, I don't know how you pronounce it. So I saw an advert about autism. So you probably heard some. So in general, we define autism through the psychiatry and through autism spectrum disorder. Or you probably heard about Rain Man in movies, or even people, especially from the US here, heard a lot about autism and vaccines. But they are all very pathological narratives. But there are so many more, narratives about autism in the media. So if you look at history and especially awareness and alterity history narratives, historical narratives, so you have so many different narratives. So for example, in ancient Egypt, so every physical disability was considered divine. So we have so many examples in Pharaoh and gods and people in general population. And as my colleague talked just about before, so we have so many pathologization of alterity and awareness in the history, like witches, but also redheads, slaves, homosexuality, and everything. So, and if you look at video games as well, so the dominant tropes about awareness and alterity are always about mental illness, especially bad mental illness and madness and violence. And most of the games represent this in a very negative way. And these narratives are very political. So in psychiatry, biology, and genetics, we don't have a very clear boundary between what is normal and abnormal. And even if you look at autism, so even autism spectrum disorder is defined by according to the social cultural norm of today. So before to go into Asteria and D&D, so I also work about representation and production, and I want to talk a bit about this to give you some clue. So especially about representation, when you look at autism representation in media, you have so many theories and paradigm and so on. So mainly you have the medical disability paradigm. So it's in game about autism or for autism. So it's like a therapeutical game to cure people, autistic people. You also have an awareness raising game. So they are more based on social disability, neurodiversity, and neurodivergence. So it's a bit like medical disability, but in addition to cure or people, you have to accommodate them. They also call some of them inclusion game based on cognitive diversity. So this is really different from what you probably heard today or what you are used to. But I'm coming from education, and when you study like universal accessibility, so we can disagree and discuss it later. So the real inclusion is more, I think, when it's invisible, and you have some video game like Overwatch with Symmetra, or you have Watch Dogs with Josh. So the autistic is not part of the central narrative, but we just have autistic character we are include, and we don't see they are autistic at all, but they are. And you also see in video games or series movie the superhero and super villain tropes. So autistic people with a superpower. In about production, so I'm interested in create who did make the game. So we have the medical world I talk about, the relative. So for example, it's parents of autistic people, they make a game about autism or with autistic characters to raise awareness. We also have game from autistic people. They are all very different, so they all want to share experience of autism. We also have like random games, so people from a game jam or hackathon. So it was, for example, about mental illness or disability or things like that, and they create a game. So like, for example, Autism, maybe you know this game. And at the end, we have the big games company who create games. So with a public general narrative and discourse about inclusion, but sometimes couldn't it be tokenism? And I will talk about the main topic of today, so the reception of autism and especially the character Asteria, so in RPG and especially Dungeons and Dragons in social media. So if you're familiar with D&D, so you probably heard about the last edition last year, so the Book of Many Things. So we have now a new canonically autistic character called Asteria. So this is the first official autistic character, and she was designed and created by an autistic writer. So according for my study, so I went to social media, so especially Facebook and Reddit, to find and select discussion about Asteria. So I didn't find that many discussion. So I took everything I could, not that many. And so I organized the messages. And I did three steps of analysis, so exploratory, sentiment analysis, and thematic classification. So at first, I selected four Facebook posts specifically about Asteria, so not so many. Uh, I also work about Reddit, but it was kind of a nightmare to sort the comments, especially when you click on a comment tree every time the page updates. So I just gave up at the end, and I only worked on Facebook posts. So I selected nearly 700 comments. So nearly half were original comments, half replies. They were not very long, so it was about like original Twitter post, X post, so 143 characters. And I had one big post with the majority of comment, 80%. So I made this cloud visualization, but it's not. Oh, sorry. So nothing very original. So all the comments were about autistic character, D&D, people with autism or play and yeah, spectrum. And, yeah. So we had like one third of positive comment, one third of neutral, one third of negative. And I give you now some example. So the negative comments were about the perception that explicit representation of autism was unnecessary or motivated by wrong reason rather than authentic character development. So I will not read every comment because time is running out, but I will try maybe to read one or two every time. So it was from autistic people and from neurotypical people. So it was not like not non-autistic people criticize a lot, and yeah, it was not like that at all. And we had positive comments so about the importance of explicit representation and its impact of autistic player. So nothing really original. So like you can see on social media, people were happy because representation matters. We have now an official autistic character in the end. So in the thematic analysis, so I identified 5 topics. So the first one was support for representation and inclusion. So people talk about the importance of acknowledging autistic characters explicitly. So again, I will not read everything, but people was kind of happy to see finally an autistic character. Secondly, so many people talk about historical precedent of autistic character, but not canonically autistic character. So they talk about Minsk and Volo, but also about like wizards and stuff like that. So some people talk about ain't all D&D player already autistic, and cannot they already create their autistic character? And yeah, so it was kind of. So the third topic was about criticism of tokenism and virtue signaling. So to tell it very simply, it refers to diversity washing. So company using like autistic character just for moral position. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so more comments about this. So virtual signal brighter than the sun. The second comment is really interesting as well because, as I said earlier, even autistic people were not autistic people were positive about this character, this creation, character creation. So the fourth topic was about freedom in role-playing creation. So as I said earlier, people just wrote, okay, we could already create autistic or neuroatypical character without an official label, and they just feel like my character didn't exist before this new character. Yeah. And the last topic was about medical perception of autism within the fantasy setting. So it was really into medical disability paradigm. And so people talk mainly about curing autism with magic. So what if Asteria get healed by another character? Does the autism disappear? Stuff like that. This was the most surprising topic, I think. And it raises a lot of discussion topics, so I won't have time to discuss everything, but we can discuss it later. So usually I really discuss this within video game because video games are very often thought like a cultural and artistic artifact, and so they are like intense debates about do we have to represent especially psychiatric labels very authentically? So what is authentical when we talk about autism? Or can we have some creative freedom to create character? So I put an example with art and Starry Night from painting. So is it authentic? So second discussion line is about should we always care about reception, because we have so many examples about autistic character created by autistic people and even played. So for example, in series and movie played by real autistic people. And even in this case, people complain on social media and say it's not authentic enough. And so we have, for example, the Harriet Manners in Geek Girls. Maybe you know the Netflix series. So it's an autistic actor created by an autistic writer. Oh, I will skip this. Yeah, and the last discussion point is about autism conception and paradigms. So as you saw, so there are so many discussion about what is autism. So can we or should autism be cured with magic, or is autism part of the individual? And one very interesting thing about D&D and this character is, even if some people complain and criticize, so it allows to make a counter narrative that can challenge dominant perspective of autism and especially the medical narrative. And in conclusion, so we can say that Asteria embodies the tension between authentic representation and commercial logic in gaming media, and that its polarized reception highlights the cultural and economic stakes of diversity in gaming. And it's not like we could think like progressism versus conservatism, because even autistic people complain and criticize this. And so it would be very interesting now to really analyze so the autism beyond the characters and beyond the discourses, so maybe mechanics, narratives, Asteria narratives, and how does it give agency to people or does it limit them? And it would be also interesting to compare it with other media and other autistic characters. So thank you for your attention.